For this week on A League of Our Own, I figured why not go big or go home? We're going to have on some coaching royalty. Welcome back to A League of Our Own. So far, we've had NFL player wives. We've had MLB wives. But we haven't had a coach's wife. So today I figured, why not go big or go home? I'm bringing on coaching royalty. Please help me welcome Steelers great Kiya Tomlin. So I've had football player wives on, and I've had baseball player wives on, but I've never had a coach's wife on. And I don't think people really have any idea what it's like to be a coach's wife. I'm pretty sure they probably think your husband goes off to work 8 o'clock and comes back at night, watch TV shows on the couch, but that's not the reality of what life is like as a football wife. So I'm so glad you're on today because we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about your amazing career that you started. But really, I want to get back to the very beginning because when I was doing research, like I told you early on, I'm type A. I like to do research. I like to figure out who I'm meeting, who I'm interviewing. And when your name popped up, I was like, oh my goodness, she's got so many stories to tell. I can't wait to have her give her story. So we're going to start with the very beginning. All right. So when you were young, you got into fashion. You had a natural love for fashion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I was reading, it started at the age of like 10 years old. So we're not talking like 15, 16, 17. At the age of 10, and I'm just going based on your blog. So if I start saying things, you're like, that's kind of freak, all this. That's because I read all about you because I was fascinated. You asked Santa, I would like a sewing machine, and then it started from there. Can you just tell me how how it all went about?
Yeah. So I actually had been interested in fashion since before I was 10. I used to make shoes out of I had an older brother who had the wooden building blocks, and I would use those to make wedges and cut out the back of notepads. My mother was a teacher, so we had a lot of paper and notepads and things. And so I would use the back piece of cardboard and I'd cut out like a little sole and I would staple it to the wedge. And then I would staple paper towels to make the straps and I would clump around the house in my high heel wedges.
Wow.
I would same thing. I would cut out little kind of like gingerbread men out of the cardboard notepads and then use paper towels to dress them. And then I had an aunt. No one in my family was interested in fashion, just no interest at all. Yeah. But I did have an aunt who was fabulous, and she used to get all the Vogue magazines, like back when they were like super thick, and she'd just leave them on her coffee table, just stacked up, like months of them. And so I would go over there and go through the magazines and smell all the perfumes. Great. And yes, and then she would have fashion TV on Saturday mornings, would be on her big floor model TV. So I'd sit on the floor in front of it on Saturdays and watch it. And, but yeah, I was the only, aside from her, I was the only person in my family or extended family interested in fashion.
I bet you were the best dressed 5-year-old anywhere in your town. Your combinations, I would probably want to come over and get some inspiration at 5 years old. Like what top goes with this bottom and what shoes goes with that.
Unfortunately not, because we didn't have money. And that's why I wanted to learn to sew, because all the cool kids were wearing cool stuff. And not only could we not afford it, I was also very, very small. And so they didn't even have cool clothes for little tiny, pipsqueak of kids. And that's why I asked for the sewing machine.
Okay, so you got the sewing machine at 10 years old. So when did you start really sewing your wardrobe? Like your clothes that you wear out and about, not just at home. Like how old? 10, 11?
Oh gosh, immediately. The first project I did was a little stuffed mallard duck. And that was because no one knew how to sew. My mom had taken home ec in 8th grade. And so she kind of dusted off her 8th grade sewing skills, and we read the manual together, and we started with the little duck that comes in the little template that you printed on the fabric. And so I made that successfully. And I said, next thing I'm doing a denim jumpsuit, and I did a denim jumpsuit. Then I had all these, go big or go home. And then I had all these, things I wanted to change about the pattern. I wanted it tapered. I wanted the waist to do this. And so I learned how to make all these little alterations. Now, granted, at that age, you're just excited to be able to make stuff. The stuff I was wearing was horrible, I'm sure. But by middle school, I was pretty good. By middle school, I was making my whole wardrobe. I had different taste than the other kids. I thought I was cooler. So I was making cooler things.
You're making Vogue. You're looking at the Vogue spread and you're thinking, well,
Yeah.
yes. And the kids back then are probably wearing like Nike t-shirt and shorts. And they're like,
Yes.
what for that she's wearing?
Yes.
Huh. So you're saying, so by middle school, you made your entire wardrobe?
Yeah.
Did any of your friends recruit you into making them clothes as well? Or were they not quite up to the fashion queue just yet?
They were not at the fashion queue just yet, but by high school, I did have requests to make prom dresses. So I did make a few prom dresses when I was in high school for other people.
Did you monopolize on this? Did you is this when your brand started right there, or was this more just like a passion project?
Unfortunately, I had never been a good salesperson. I just loved to do it, and I would do it for free. And yeah, that's really how I ended up getting into business. I would just sew things for people for free, and it wasn't until after I got married that my husband was like, "You will not do not one more free wedding gown in this house." And so I started a business.
That's right. Well, so I was reading, and this is amazing, and I want to hear it from your voice because you'll probably tell the story way better. But your fashion inspiration outside of Vogue and the magazines and your aunt came from a very famous lady that we all have known our entire lives, who is known for being elegant and known for her fashion and just her presence. So 1982 summer camp. Can you tell me what happened? Who you met? Where you came from?
Yeah. So it's so funny that it's this long ago, and like this is the inspiration for my brand today. But I was 8 years old and going to sleepaway summer camp for gymnastics. And back then, this is before Simone Biles and Dominique Dawes, there were not any Black gymnasts. And so there happened to be a little Black gymnast about my age in the cabin next door to me. And so we became fast friends because we were like the only ones. Sure. And her mother was coming to visit, and it was midweek. Normally the parents come on weekends, but this was midweek. And she asked if I would go up to the main lodge with her to meet her mom. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we walk up to the main lodge, and the main lodge had a balcony, and her mother was standing on the balcony outside overlooking where we were. And she had on head to toe white silk chiffon. Like I, at the time, did not know what that fabric was, but it was like sheer and just like so light and billowy in the breeze. Yes, the breeze was catching it and it was blowing in the breeze. And then she just had this like enormous like halo of hair. And it was just blowing in the breeze, and the sun was setting behind, and it just created this whole glow, like a little halo. And then so she came down the stairs, like floating down the stairs to the ground where we were. And then just in her all white silk chiffon, she just sat down on the ground with us like it was nothing, like just all that elegance and just all that ease and comfort. Yeah, it was the coolest thing, because when I was growing up, we weren't allowed to own anything white. So the fact that she had all this white on and just sat down on the ground like it was nothing and was so comfortable and so elegant at the same time. And when she sat down, I realized it was Diana Ross. And that just was like, I don't know. I've just always been trying to capture that feeling and that aesthetic of being that glamorous and that elegant, but being that functional.
Well, she's always been known for her presence, her look, and you just painted the best picture. Now you have me wanting to go and go back through Diana Ross pictures. But I mean, at such a young age, that inspiration, obviously it was such a core memory for you. And so now you have your own clothing line, and what obviously her brand or her look was elegance and ease. What is it with the Kiya Tomlin line? What is it? What is your look? What is your vibe? What are you trying to get across when people buy your pieces?
It's really the same thing. It's really that put together elegance, but it merges like this. Nowadays, a lot of women, we live so many different labels. I'm a mom, I'm a businesswoman. I'm a fitness enthusiast. I like to travel. I like to do all this stuff. I'm a caretaker. And I want the clothes to fit all of those roles, but at the same time, make you feel good and know that you look good and not be stressful, not be in your closet in the morning trying to put together a look, trying to decide what to wear. Like that can be really frustrating. So I wanted to design something that is just really effortless in both thought and feel. And so that's what the goal of the brand is about.
Functional and beautiful, day and night. So how did you go about coming up with your own line? Because you are a coach's wife, and that doesn't give you a lot of time. You move around a lot, and we'll get to that in a second because I want to hear. I really don't know what it's like to be a coach's wife, but you move around a lot. It's very ups and downs. You're all over the place. So what was it that made you decide, you know what, I want to go out there. I want to have my own brand. I want to give back. I want to create. I want to do something for me. How did that come about?
So it was much smaller than that. So it's a much smaller decision than that. It really was about when we got married. I actually didn't know my husband wanted to coach football. When we got married right out of college, he was going to graduate school, get his graduate degree, and he was a graduate assistant with the football team, which paid his tuition. So I just figured pays his tuition and he'll, move on and get a real job after that. When I learned that he wanted to be a football coach, still not a big deal. I'm thinking football coach, like, okay, high school football coach, coach a gym class or science class in the day, and then you coach the football team in the evening. Still not a big deal. Then I learned he wanted to be a college coach, and that's where we were at the time. He was a graduate assistant. And so I started to look around and look at the other families to see what that looked like. I didn't know what that looked like. And it was really eye-opening. I remember meeting a woman we went to a coaches convention, and there was a woman at my little small group table who said she had moved 18 times in 18 years. And that's what coaching, that's the first vision of coaching I had. So between that and we were very young. We were right out of college. We were the same age as the kids that, just about that we were recruiting he would recruit, and I was supposed to be entertaining the parents, and I was like the same age as their kids. So it was really hard for me to kind of try to entertain these parents.
Right. And to, come on, we'll take care of them when we're the same age.
Yeah. And at that time we didn't have any kids. So I would look around at these older coaching families, and I would see how much the women, how long hours the husbands work, which my husband at the time was working those as well. But the women, how much time they spent taking care of the families, and that was their sole job. They did not have other jobs. That's what they did, and that's what they needed to do. But I noticed that as the kids, left the nest, left the house, the women were lost, kind of sad, no sense of purpose. And so I just knew I did not want that to be me. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I still had a lot of stuff that I needed to be able to do. Seeing all that actually made the decision not to go to med school, because I'm like, how am I going to go be a doctor and go to med school? And how do I lock into a med school and a residency when we could be moving 18 times in 18 years? And so I kind of said, okay, well, I'll figure out something, but It won't be that. And all the while I just sewed and designed because that's what I did for fun. Okay. And it really wasn't until we had moved from, we were at the University of Cincinnati, and my husband was a coach. So fortunately, since he was a coach, I was able to go to design school there for free, which was just
nice,
super cool. Yeah. Because I had been teaching all these years, I just was self-taught. I would buy textbooks and magazines and just trial and error. So to be able to actually be in a formal program and learn like the formal techniques that they teach there. But we were only there for 2 years, and then we moved to Tampa, Florida, where my husband got a job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I just figured I would transfer to design school down there. And my husband said, "Yeah, we're not in college coaching anymore. College is no longer free. You have a degree already. Like, we're not paying for college." And so that was the end of my formal. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just start a business. And I started with wedding gowns because I just figured, like, if you could do a wedding gown, then you are top tier, and like, just call me Vera Wang. I'm there.
And really, this is funny because my degree was in sports broadcasting. Then I went back to school. But when we went to the Jets, I needed a job because I just do not do well with idle time and nothing to do. I became a wedding dress consultant for 2 years in New Jersey and New York. Talk about crazy, but really fun brides. And so I had never worked in the fashion industry before, but I did wedding dresses, and it was such a fun experience. But now I feel like I know a ton about wedding dresses. I could never sew one, but I remember we had that in common. I was like, whoa, because you have to have a certain vision. You have to keep the bride in mind. So you made wedding dresses though.
Yes, I designed and made them.
No? Like, is there any still out there?
No. And
No.
they were all custom. They were all, for one particular bride. And I did it, and I liked doing it that way because by then I had two small children, one, maybe two, and it allowed me to work at my own pace. I could take on as much work or as little work as I wanted. Typically have 6 months or more to make a wedding gown, when really I could really make one in about 3 days if I had to. And so it was really a nice way to pace it that kept me entertained, but also allowed me the time to take care of my kids and take care of the family. And so that's how I started the business. Now, when we talk about like the brand that I have now, that really came out of after we had, a couple cities later, when we landed here in Pittsburgh. I was still doing custom, but it was a little different now because now my husband is the head coach of the Steelers, and I had always worked from home in my basement. People would come for fittings, or I would go to their home for fitting. It started to get just a little weird, bringing just random strangers into our home to do fitting.
Head coach of the
Yeah.
Steelers. Like,
Yes.
now.
Yes. So I decided to get a little studio space outside of the home, which I was really excited about because it also let me kind of not be multitasking. I'm not putting in a load of laundry or cooking dinner and then running back down in the middle of the day doing stuff. And so I would, as soon as my youngest daughter started kindergarten, that's when I opened my studio. And I just worked the hours that the kids were in school. It was pretty short and quick. But the brand came about because after I moved out into the studio, then I had to start getting dressed, because previously I just worked in my sweats and in my pajamas or my workout clothes, whatever I felt like whatever was comfortable. But now I'm client facing, public facing. And so I had to wear real clothes. And so that was fun at first because I love clothes. I've got a closet full of amazing things, but it's not practical for the way I worked and the lifestyle of still running my kids. And so I decided to create just this little sweatshirt dress that would be super comfortable and easy to work in. It would be presentable and versatile. I could, present to clients with some nice little, casual shoes on. I could put tennis shoes on and run my kids, run my errands. I could put stilettos on, go out in the evening for an event, all in this one little dress, and then just throw it in the washing machine when I'm done. And so I created this dress for myself, and I wore it like a uniform. So there I was like that effortless, just ease of getting up in the morning. I know what I'm wearing. I save a ton of time, and I would wear it every day. And people would stop me on the street all the time and ask me where I got my dress from. And so I was like, this is could be a little side hustle to the custom. And I was attracted to that because the custom design is, it's very limited to what you can do. It's very expensive. So I don't have a lot of clients because it's usually people just need something for a wedding or for a red carpet or And so this allowed me to kind of be able to expand my reach and really make a lot of women happy, make it, more affordable.
Well, yeah, I'm a mom of 4. So you're preaching to the choir. My mom, I'm extremely close to my mom and we FaceTime all the time, but she's always like, Julianne, why are you in workout clothes? For one day, could you put on jeans and something other than sweatpants and a sweatshirt? And I'm like, my lifestyle right now with 4 kids, I'm at practice 5 hours a night. I'm running around and it's like, I am looking for pieces like you're designing. And I think there's a lot of people out there. There's such a great market because if you're a mom and you multitask, then you have to be able to move around. But at the same time, I don't want to look like a bum every day in sweats with like sweat stains. I still want to look good, but at the same time, I'm realistic. I'm like, I can't go to soccer practice in skinny jeans and high heels because I'm chasing balls. I'm walking around. It's cold outside. And so, I think you have such a great market. And I just now, I don't know how this is the first time I just found out about it, but the other day we got off the phone, I went into your website and I was like, I'm going to put this in my cart. I'm going to put this is my style. Like, I love a good jumpsuit. I'm like, okay, yes. I'm like, you've inspired me to kind of like revamp my wardrobe. Okay. So we just saw that was a long road to getting where you are now, but it's become super successful. I want to kind of talk about your time with the Steelers now that you've made your home base there, you have your company there. Obviously, it was not a quick road to become a coach's wife with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you guys have been there for 16 years now?
Oh, 18.
18. Okay. Yeah. So just for people who don't know, you are married to Mike Tomlin. He's the head coach for the Steelers. He has, and I'm not going to jinx anything because I'm kind of superstitious in the way, but he's had a really good winning record while being coach for the Steelers, which if people don't know, it is very, very, very rare for a coach to stay in one place for that long of a time period. Normally, like you said, we talk about, Black Monday where coaches get fired. It's very transient. There's a lot of movement all the time, but you guys have not been that way. You've broken the mold. So what do you think it is about Mike and you and your family? What do you think it is? How do you think you've been able to last as long as you have in the NFL? Because it's a true accomplishment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. We've been very fortunate because like you said, most coaching families do not have this luxury. We've been able to raise our kids, all of them. Our oldest son was in kindergarten, midway through his first year of kindergarten when we moved here. And so he was able to go from kindergarten through high school, all in the same city, which is very, very unusual.
Right.
We're with an amazing organization. The Steelers, run by the Rooney family. They are just, they are the best. They really are the best. They are so well respected in the league and nationwide. I love to tell this one story because I think we were just a really good fit to be here. When my husband first was hired and we flew in for the press conference where he was announced, and afterwards, Mr. Rooney, who was unfortunately passed away a few years ago, said, "Look, we're going to pick you up for dinner, and we'll all go to dinner after." And so my husband and I were staying at the hotel downtown, and so my husband's like, "Oh, I can't be late! Don't be late! Don't be late! That'll be so embarrassing!" So we run down. We get down to the lobby a few minutes early, and Mr. Rooney and his wife are already in the lobby waiting on us. And so we're like, "Okay," we head off to the restaurant, and we just assumed, based on the teams we had been with before, we thought there'd be like a town car, a driver, something kind of fancy, a shot up. And it was Mr. Rooney was driving, and he was 75, maybe. I don't know. He's getting up there. And he was driving this little it's like maybe like a Ford Contour. It was kind of like the nondescript cars you get like from the rental company that they just kind of, you don't really know what brand they are. They're just like a little economy sedan or whatever. And it was a 2-door. And we walk up to the car, he's driving, and his wife, Mike opens the door like a gentleman, and his wife, she takes that 2-seat and she slings it back, and she's like, "Come on, Kiya, girls in the back." And we hop in the back of this 2-seater.
It's like going up with your best friends. It's like, come on.
Yes. It was just so down to earth and so regular and so real and so not pretentious, and it was so comfortable. And it just felt like an amazing fit. But they showed, I think we learned so much for how to treat people, how to run a business. Just amazing mentors to be around. So I definitely think that's part of it as well. And then I think, my husband does have a unique, experience and unique upbringing where he is very good at relating, to people of all different kinds, all different ages. It really is a skill set of his. And I remember when someone mentioned that, I don't know, like, oh, he hit the lottery or, something like that. And I think of it more like if you saw the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
That's like one of my all-time favorite movies. But if you haven't seen the movie, it's this young guy and he's at this, Let's Make a Million game show or whatever. And he's getting all these really hard questions right. And they're like, he must be cheating. He must, that's luck. He's getting all these answers right. But in the middle of the movie, they're flashing back to different parts of his life that affected him. That is why he knows the answer to those questions. And I feel like his story really is that. He has just had this amazing experience from birth up that all together combined to make him, shaped him into this like really smart and well suited for the job.
Sure. Wow. I mean, it sounds like he's very much a people person. We've never had the privilege of playing for him, or we played against him many times. And actually, my most memorable moment was my husband has been in the league for a long time, but we've never gone to the Super Bowl. However, there was one year we got super close. All right. We were with the Jets. It was his first year with the Jets, Mark Sanchez. We played you guys in the AFC championship game, and we had been playing so well, but we did not play well the first half, and we crumbled. And I just remember being like, here we go. We were so excited. We were so excited. And then y'all just crushed us. And I've only been to one Super Bowl in my entire life. It's when you guys played Green Bay in Dallas.
Oh,
we don't have to talk about it, but talk about it. But I was just like, well, that's my most memorable moment with the Steelers. Y'all beat us. My one opportunity we could have gone to the Super Bowl. But I mean, it was early on in Nick's career, and it was such a core memory. I still remember it. But you guys have done so well over the years. So I want to talk about this. I always ask my girls when they come on here, especially you've been married for a long time in a industry that is, I think the divorce rate is like 85% right now.
Really?
It's super crazy high right now. It's just crazy. I don't know if that's the case for coaches, but I think it is players. However, you have broken that mold. So how did you guys first meet? And how do you think that you've been able to stay married over this long course in the NFL?
First, I'd like to say that I'd be interested to see the difference in statistics between coaches and players.
I'm sure it's
because I don't know very many divorced coaches.
Okay.
But I could see where that would be as players. I definitely think it does attract a different type of woman, a different type of person. We are not, coaches are not in high profile, high, super high paid compared to the players. I can remember when my husband got his first job in the NFL at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he was the same age, actually even a little bit younger than some of his players. And so, their wives, they're like, oh, great, Kiya, nice to meet you. They're wanting to be friends. And my husband was like, no, you can't be friends with them. He's like, we don't make that kind of money. You may not be friends with them. Then, also if my husband has to fire someone, that makes it, a little awkward that we're, gal pals. But, so yeah, I think for, coaches' wives, you do have to be pretty independent and, just understand that there's not a lot of together time and be okay with that.
So it's like a typical day, like as a coach, the head coach. I'm sure it varies maybe if your position coach, but like for a head coach, gets at 5, 6, 7. What's it like?
Yeah, probably 5 in season. He gets up around 4:35. I should know this because he makes me set the alarm clock, even though I may not be planning to get up that early.
No.
About 4:45, 5. Sometimes he'll just go to the kitchen and get some work done, and then come back to bed for like 20 minutes. I don't know why. And then go into work. And then I have no idea what he does at work, but he's there all day and into the night. I always say he's just hopping.
I really think that they go and they talk and they play and they work and they work out and then they eat and then they work out, eat and shower.
But, and then he typically home, like I don't have to do his laundry. I don't have to feed him. All that is done at work for the most part. He's gotten a little more high maintenance as years have gone by. I think he just gets tired of eting there. And so he wants to meet a cook. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't want to cook. I'm probably, yeah. I had it so good for so long.
I don't even know what to make at this point.
No,
I'm like,
I don't even know how to cook. I don't even know how to cook anymore. So he's usually home, I would say, between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. And I will say when he was younger and in more assistant positions, it was a lot longer, if you can imagine. I mean, when our kids were babies, he would leave for work at 4 a.m. and he would come home at 1 a.m. the next morning. But I think a lot of the computer stuff has helped. Like, has the technology has made things so much faster, and now they have all these different like technical positions that handle all of that.
Things at home too that they could. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So does he get like 2 weeks off a year? Do you have a month? Like season ends. My husband, and I, over the last 8 years, wherever he's playing, because he was on a bunch of 1-year deals for a little bit, he goes for 6 months and I stay here in Dallas with our 4 kids. And so he's gone from July, and then January he comes home and I hold down the fort. But then he's pretty much got 6 months at home to train, work out, but be with the family. Do coaches get any extended period of time off? Is it 2 weeks, a month?
Not then. So once the season ends, then there's the first thing he does is he's got to do exit interviews because all the players leave. So you got to meet with all the players and, have whatever discussions you need to have. Same thing with some of the coaches, you kind of tie that stuff up more so probably because they still work, but more so just for transition. Maybe somebody's got some job offers out there or somebody's, that kind of stuff. Right. And then it goes right into scouting. And so my husband does travel a lot for scouting. Right now he's at the Senior Bowl. But he does go to different, he does go to the different colleges. So, for pro days and that kind of stuff. So he's pretty much traveling every week. From now till then, when he is home during the week if he's not traveling, he's more of maybe more banker's hours. He might be home by 6, which is early. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Oh God, I bet you want dinner.
Well, let's get a glass of wine. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he does that all the way through until end of June. I think, end of June. He'll get about 4 to 6 weeks off.
Okay.
And I will say he's just now, after all these years, getting to the place where he actually can take.
We'll take them
that time off.
I'm just gonna go in for a couple hours just to
Yeah.
So what was it like? Your kids, that's all they ever knew was daddy goes to work all the time. Are they big football fans now? I mean, obviously their entire childhood was in the NFL. And so that's probably all that they know. But do you think you had a good enough routine that this is what daddy does? Or was that hard for them, do you think, when they were younger?
No, they don't know anything different. They just, that's what he does. I think my older boys remember earlier when he could go places where, he wasn't all that recognizable. Sure. So they saw the difference. My daughter was born and we moved here before she turned 1. So that's all she knows is that, her dad is the head coach of the Steelers and what that means to the community. Now, granted, it wasn't until she was probably 10 that she realized that people thought it was a big deal. It wasn't a big deal to her. And then once kids started, once her girlfriends and boyfriends started paying attention to football, then she was like, oh, is your dad not on TV? She didn't realize that was an abnormal, abnormal thing. So yeah, my boys, they're football fans, but they're more selfish football fans. They are about them playing football. Even to where as they got older, they didn't go to the football games, because they're not playing. They maybe check in on the score. If I'm home watching the game, they might pop in. Maybe one would watch it with me. But even our home games, they had gotten to where they weren't really gonna, didn't want to take up their whole day at the stadium watching other people play football. They wanted to play themselves.
Do you go to every game, every home game, or I feel bad. I like away games. I like to sit on my couch. I like to watch. I like to be able to doing things around the house while I'm watching the game. So don't feel bad if you well, what's the right or wrong answer? There's that.
Yeah. No, I never go to away games. I have been only at previous teams. Sometimes they did wives trips, so I might go on that. But I do not try. People assume since I'm married to the head coach that I go to the away games. I do not, never. Unless the president's wife invites me. But I actually do not find them fun. It is a very large business trip with hundreds of people that are on a very tight schedule, and you feel kind of like a fish going upstream. You just feel like you're in the way, and especially
do dinner. Yeah, you got meeting. Yeah. I'll go to the game, sit in traffic, and then try not to recognize, and so people happened.
Yeah, and especially because my husband, he sleeps at the hotel, even for home games. He sleeps at the hotel with the team the night before. So I'm never with him the night before a game. So when I would travel to an away game with them and I'm in the hotel room with him, I feel like I'm like, can I turn the TV on? Can I watch Law & Order? I don't know I don't know if he has a mojo that he needs to do, or, I don't want to mess it up. And then for home games, so I actually never really used to go to the games. I'm not a football person. I didn't grow up with watching football. But if the weather was nice, and I would go because I just like to be outside. It's a reason to, it's kind of like sitting at the park. But once my kids were born, and I just did not want to wrestle toddlers in the stadium. And so my in-laws would come to town and they would take them. And I'd be like, great, I had the whole house to myself. I cooked dinner. So when you got home, there was dinner cooked. Oh, it was so quiet and so peaceful. And I loved it. And I did that, all the way up till we got to the Steelers. And so I started going to the games here because Mr. Rooney, would come into the box the day of the game and just, hello, good luck, whatever, small talk. And I was just thought like, man, how crappy is that if if the coach's wife is not here? So I would come for that. And then eventually he left to become the ambassador of Ireland. And so then I stopped coming. Once he went to Ireland,
I'm gone.
Yeah. So, but then I started again because my in-laws, we had moved them to Pittsburgh, and my father-in-law had some health issues and needed some help getting in and out of the games and tending to that. So I would come just so I could help my in-laws enjoy the game. And
you're such a brother for share. Because maybe it's because I'm getting older now and I'm just busy and I just don't care as much because I have too much going on. But everyone's like, do you go to all the away games? Why aren't you at all the games? I'm like, I really don't have time. So majority, I'm pretty sure out of the 17 games, 10 of them I game tracked because I was at a sporting event this year where I would probably cheer and people were looking at me. But besides that, I was like, Nick's like, did you see my kick? And I was like, I went on YouTube and I watched, but I didn't see it live. So don't be mad. But I was at your son's game. I was sporting. It's all good. He doesn't care. He gets it at this point.
Don't you feel, have you noticed the difference in like your love? Like in the early years, you were probably like at every game watching, you're probably in full attention. So just imagine that like stress that you had then versus what you have now. Like, you check in, like, and so that's how it's always for me.
Oh, like, good for you, not me. I got in the league. I mean, when we first got into the league, I was 21 years old. Like I was young too, and I think when you first get in, your world revolves around that, and your world revolves around the player because they're used to being coddled. They're used to like seeing people make their meals, and then they have workouts, and then they get massages. And so I feel like I need to do everything I can to make sure I don't interrupt that. And then as the years, we've played 17 years. As the years have gone on, I'm like, you do what you got to do. I've got 4 kids over here. I don't have time. And it's almost like this huge weight has been lifted off my shoulder. I don't have time to worry anymore. But you know what? Now I think I appreciate it, enjoy it so much more because I'm like, you know what? Back then, if he missed a kick, I had a knot in my stomach the whole week. I was like dwelling about that one kick. But now I'm like, I don't have time for that. So like, well, I support you. I will cheer you on when you hit a huge milestone. We will make it a big deal. But otherwise, it's like the world keeps going. I've got to go boys to soccer. I've got to take my daughter to soccer. And so now I enjoy it so much more. I'm like, if he goes, I've got it down. I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. Like, how am I going to do this by myself? It's like, you go do your thing. I do my thing when you're here, very present. Otherwise, we kind of have our roles at this point.
I'm really, it's like, why? Like, I'm sure my husband has enough stress doing his job. Like, he doesn't need me to stress for him as well. And so I think I think that's what works for us is not only am I not stressed for myself, but he's not stressing that I'm stressing. Sure. And then it helps that I don't really, I enjoy the game. I've learned to, understand the game a little bit, at least now. But I do intentionally not learn more because then then I'll have more questions. Right. And so then when he comes home, I'm like, hey, well, why did you do that? Or why don't you do this? Or, right. Yeah. And that's like not what he wants to come home to. And so the less I know, the happier marriage is. And
that's right. Okay. So I want to hear, you've been in the league a long time. So let me hear your craziest NFL memory. Like something crazy. It could be fan related. It could be just like, I've had crazy stories. I've gone into labor during training camp. We've had,
okay.
Okay. Let's hear.
Okay. So I was, in for those that don't know, like in the league, you all have to pretty much schedule your babies, so that you have them at the right time.
Right.
And so I was pregnant with my second son, and we had scheduled to induce. That's when I think they don't really induce as quite as easily nowadays, but back then they were very free with the inductions.
Sure.
And so I was scheduled to induce 2 weeks early, because you want to make sure you don't go too far where you go into labor. And the morning I went in to have him, and I think my husband had this was our first year in the league. So he'd just gotten in the league. So, you got to prove yourself. You'd just gotten in the league, just finished that first season. And I think we lost I don't know if it was the championship. I can't keep track of this stuff, but we lost a big game
A long time ago.
in the playoffs. Yeah, playoff game. And they fired Coach Dungy. That's who was the head coach at the time, Tony Dungy. And that was the morning of my scheduled induction. So I'm at the hospital being induced,
Ready to go.
watching the press conference on TV, knowing they're getting fired. And my husband is at the facility, and the doctor is like, saying, okay, well, we're going to slow down the Pitocin. So your husband has time to finish the press conference.
Oh my gosh.
And then, at some point the doctor says, okay, your husband needs to come. It's time. My husband comes. We have the baby within like 3 minutes.
That's right.
And he goes back and he's sitting there filling out COBRA insurance forms. Like we are now unemployed.
That's right. It's like, you just gave birth, no big deal, but now I've got to go to a press conference and I got to figure Yeah. Okay. I'll come back. Oh my God.
Yeah. As I'm watching the firing on TV in the delivery room.
Oh my God. Talk about, well, if you weren't already going into labor, that may have pushed you over the top there.
Yeah.
No. So Nick was in upstate New York. We were in New Jersey. My parents are in Dallas. We have no family there. And I'm pregnant with twins. And, my doctor's like, you know what? I'm going to Vegas and over the weekend. These babies are about to come. I really think you need to call your husband right now, and he needs to come. And so they're in the middle of practice. He's like, no, you need to call them now. I remember calling Rex Ryan as the coach and his assistant Laura. I was like, hey Laura, hate to do this. Nick's gonna kind of be weird about it because he's like very routine, but you need to go get Nick off the field because I'm about to have the twins. And so she ran to practice and she's like, hey Nick, you need to go. Your wife's gonna have the baby. And he was like, and the coach was like, get your bag. So he made it. I had the babies, but he only got to see the delivery. He had to jump on a plane with the media, fly to Detroit, played in a game, got to come back, got 12 hours, and then left for 2 weeks for training camp again. So I always say it's a blessing because by the time he got back, I had a routine. It was like a well-oiled machine. He got back, and ladies do this. And so then he jumped right back in, but there's no stopping football. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, babies, there's no stopping the NFL schedule.
But just to remind me of another story with my first son, we were in college coaching, and it was right before we got into the league. And I had was induced early because my husband, they were going to play in a Pro Bowl on my due date. And so everyone that I knew, because I only knew like the coaching families, everyone I knew was going to Detroit for this bowl game. I was going to be home alone. So we had this baby early. I was home alone for like the first 4 days, which I was like, I remember just putting the baby on the bed and like looking at it going, what am I supposed to do with it? Like, I had no idea what to do. And so then I ended up getting on a plane and going to Detroit for the bowl game with this 5-day-old baby, thinking like, one of the wives was a nurse, which actually was really helpful. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to hang out in the bedroom just so I'm not alone. I'm, near people or whatever. I didn't stay in the bedroom. I was all over Detroit with this baby, but I went to the bowl game, and I remember being in the bathroom at the stadium, and I'm, quietly, and this is my first baby. So I'm like nervous about nursing. I'm like embarrassed. So I'm like in a corner somewhere, like squatting against the wall on the floor, like nursing my baby. Right. And I hear these two women come in, and they're like, oh my God, can you believe there's a woman here with an 8-day-old baby? Oh my God. And I'm sure I'm like, oh my God.
Like, don't cry, be quiet.
Like, I didn't know I didn't know that wasn't okay. Is that?
It's fine. I always think parenthood is survival. You do whatever you think. And you know what? I took my babies everywhere because I was stuck in New Jersey by myself. I'm like, I am not going to sit in this little. We had this it was almost like a shack because we had to move out. It was a 1-year deal, and we had like a week in order to find another place before season started. So our realtor said, sign on this place. So we signed sight unseen, and we pull up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you babies into what? Into this? You would go to the bathroom and it sounded like a baby was crying and there was like pipes running. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can't stand here. Took him everywhere and they're fine. They're driving.
Yeah.
You got to do.
They're healthy and happy.
They're healthy and happy. Okay, wait, really quick. We don't have much time, but you have 3 kids.
Yes.
2 boys and a girl. And your daughter's a gymnast, just like you, correct? And
yes.
is she a gymnast in college?
Yeah. So this is her first year at the University of Georgia.
Oh, wow.
Doing gymnastics. Yes.
Does she have a specialty like beam or floor?
So, so she was recruited as an all-around gymnast. She was all 4 events. She's very good. But unfortunately, as soon as she got to college, they realized she had 4 stress fractures in her shin and they were not healing. So she did have to get a titanium rod put in, as soon as she got to school. She's now just starting to come back. She actually had her debut. She was able to compete beam at the last meet. And so, yeah, she's on the climb back. So that's really exciting.
That's so exciting. Do you think she got into gymnastics because you were a gymnast?
Yeah, I had always said I would not put my kids in gymnastics. Well, the boys were never an option.
They're
yeah. But I always said I wouldn't put my daughter in gymnastics because I just remember as a teenager how much time commitment it was. And I remember wishing that I could go to the parties and do the things that the other kids were doing and, be on the school soccer team and that kind of stuff. And so I wanted that for my daughter until I started to realize like, oh, it's pretty good that like you don't have any time to get into trouble. Like there are very few gymnasts that get into trouble. And so I had all the kids, even the boys, the only thing you can do with them at like 18 months is those like mommy and me type things. And so all my kids started in that and the boys went on to do other stuff. And my daughter, she just stayed with it. And, then you could see that she was excelling in it. I remember this funny story. I think she was like 5 or 6 and we had a meeting with her coach and it was kind of like, team, where they were going to, what class they're going to put her in next or whatever. And my husband and I are in there and my husband says, so, now we're like level 3, I think. And he says, so, what do you think about college gymnastics? Do you think she could get a college scholarship? And I remember the coach. Oh yeah. The coach looked at us like we were absolutely crazy and said like, I'm sorry, she's 6. Like,
6 years.
Yeah. Like,
we're in step A. College is step like F.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, so after that, we were like, we pulled her from that gym. We're like, that coach doesn't know what she's doing.
It doesn't know the same we do. It's not.
No. I mean, it's funny because my daughter just told me she's at college and she just told me she was talking with some kids, like a baseball player and some other student athlete. And she told them how like the rule in our house was always, we're not paying for college. Unlike you are to get a scholarship in whatever it is. I don't care if it's football, gymnastics, like basket weaving, academics, so pottery, whatever. We're not paying unless you go to Ivy. If you go Ivy League, we'll pay. And so my oldest son got an athletic scholarship. My middle son went Ivy and my daughter got an athletic scholarship. And so she was just talking about it at school, not thinking anything of it. And the one kid said like, wait, what? Are your parents just knew you were going to be a Division I like scholarship athlete? Like she didn't think there was anything weird about it. Right. And so she called me and she's like, Mom, like that was kind of crazy of you guys. And I'm like, no, like we knew what we were looking at. Like we weren't gonna, if you didn't have like the potential to do it, we wouldn't have said that. But yeah, like we could see. So we were both college scholarship athletes. We knew what we were looking at.
Well, I this may offend people, but our house, like, just like you said, if my kids aren't capable of something, I'm not going to push them into doing it. However, if I see they have potential in something, and they're thriving, I'm going to motivate that and I'm going to push it. So in our house, I use the phrase, I'm like, is that average? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, you're not average. So that's average. I said, what would a not average response be? And they're like that. I'm like, so maybe we should do that because my kids play at a high level sport right now. They're they're in 6th grade, but they play on the MLS next team for FC Dallas and they practice 5 days a week and they travel all over the world, but it's a mindset. And if they didn't have a mindset and they weren't always practicing on their own, I would not be driving them to 5 days of practice a week. And we wouldn't be talking about taking a gap year if they need to go try out overseas. Right. But as long as they're willing and they're wanting to work hard, I have no problem throwing out big ideas because like you said before, as long as my kids are busy with some kind of passion or interest, they don't have time to get in trouble. And especially technology the way it is today and kids go drinking earlier. I'm like, I'm going to keep you on as much as I can so you don't have time to do this other stuff.
But just think about I know for us, the work ethic that you're modeling for your kids. So that those long hours that I talked about, my husband working and me running, starting my business and running my business while my kids were growing up, that's all they know as well.
Right.
So that is what normal is to them, to work hard and to, really focus and put your all into it. So you throw that with some little natural ability and like, yeah, of course, like you're a scholarship athlete.
No, you're right. Like that, I think that's something that my kids have seen, like on days when they're tired, I just say, you know what, like, I understand if you need to take the day off, but like your dad over here, he had surgery. He's rehabbing 2 hours every day. He's stretching every night. He's exhausted, but in order to get where he's been, he has to do that. And so I think it is easier for them to see a direct in front of them. Like, hey, if I do this, this can happen. Which it has. So that is an advantage, I think, just having in front of you that these big dreams can come true.
And just think about the kids who don't have that and have to try to dream big and you don't have a model to see it come to life.
Right. And are hearing people saying, oh, it's only that 0.01% that actually do that. Can be that one. But yeah. So, and so they've gotten to see that. So I think it's a great example. And man, this has been so fun today. I wish we could talk longer. My producers are like, Jay, you tend to talk too much. But I just keep going. And like I told you early on, I was very selective with who I have come on these podcasts because I really want not only relatable women, but also like women where people are like, man, I want to be like her when I grow up. And so you're one of those women. You have such an incredible story. And I just feel totally motivated today by having you on. And I wish you all the best. I wish your kids the best. I wish Mike the best. Whatever y'all want to do down the road, I hope it happens for you guys. And I definitely am going to go buy that one suit on now. So I just don't know what team we're going to be on next year. It's because we're free agents now. So, I have this whole wardrobe of all these cute things I had made and I wore them one time. And I'm like, I'm just going to put a pause on that until I know what the future holds. Thank you so much for being my first coach's wife. I think it's going to be almost impossible to top our talk today. So thanks again for coming on, kind of giving us an insight of what your life is like, how it differs from a player's life, and just for really just bringing us into your household and just showing us how amazing you are. So thanks for coming out today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been great and an honor to be able to tell my story.
Thanks for joining us today on A League of Her Own with Kiya Tomlin. She is coaching royalty. She's part of the Steelers franchise. They've been there forever. She's an entrepreneur. She's got an amazing clothing line, a mother of 3. What doesn't she do? Thanks for joining us today on A League of Her Own, and I hope to see you next time.